Welcome to the How to DAO podcast, your go-to source for everything about decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. We are not just here to inform, we are here to inspire and empower a new wave of creators and participants in the DAO space. We offer a comprehensive suite of courses tailored for everyone, from those taking their first steps in the DAO world to seasoned veterans looking for deeper insights. These courses cover everything from the fundamental blockchain and DAO concepts to advanced strategies in governance and tokenomics, ensuring you have all the knowledge and tools necessary to thrive. But we go beyond education. Upon course completion, you will have access to funding grants to launch your own DAO or secure a position within an existing one. We are committed to supporting you at every stage of your journey. On this podcast, you will hear from some of the brightest minds in the DAO community. Our guests share their personal stories, practical advice, and visionary insights, helping you navigate complex yet exciting landscape. And don't miss our newly released book, How to DAO, available at major US retailers or directly from our site at howtodao.xyz. And join our thriving community on Discord, where all these initiatives converge. You can find the invite link on our Twitter at howtodaobook. We believe passionately that DAOs are the future of coordination. Our entire initiative is designed to support this movement and help you be part of it. And now we will hear from our guests. So stay on. Welcome in our next How to DAO live stream. Today, I welcome my friend Graham Novak, who is the founder of Constitution DAO, who you might heard of, and he is also doing other projects in crypto, currently Mezzanine, which is DAO tooling. So today we will talk about the Constitution DAO, how it started, and then we will get into his current project. So welcome, Graham.
Hey, thanks for having me, Punkar. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's always great to chat with you. I know we last chat in person in Austin. It was fun. It was more like network state topic. Now it's more DAO for this podcast, but it's kind of
They're related.
Exactly. It's exactly. So what actually got you into like blockchain and crypto and when you started?
Yeah, I got into this space in 2017. I was running a Web 2 company at the time. It was called NomadX. And it was, actually kind of adjacent to what's kind of happening with some of the network state stuff. It was an international network of host cities. And our interface looked an awful lot like Airbnb. People would come on, and we were based in Lisbon. We had houses in Prague and Budapest and Chiang Mai, Thailand. You'd stay for a few months at a time. And that general crowd, a lot of our customers were really into crypto. So one of my customers introduced me to, he was a Bitcoin maxi, introduced me to Bitcoin, convinced me to read a book or two. Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper was the kind of the seminal piece. I was like, I like really get it. And ever since then, I'd started trying to arbitrage Litecoin and Bitcoin back in 2017. Successfully, I figured out the hard way what depth in liquidity markets actually meant. And then when we sold the company in 2019, I joined an investment fund and I ran their crypto investment practice, started their crypto fund, started managing professional crypto assets in 2019. And that was kind of going into DeFi summer. And that's all kind of what was leading up before Constitution DAO.
Nice. So before we got into Constitution DAO, which everyone is waiting for, I was the story there. What type of projects you were actually like investing in or researching on in the investment fund?
Yeah, the investment fund was a large liquid fund for a family office. So unfortunately, it means there's a lot of like boring, dry stuff. First and foremost, start with Apex exposure, the Bitcoin, Ethereum exposure. And then it was basically moving into some types of DeFi products. And so the most of it was basically trying to identify what are some of the early DeFi winners. And so these were things in the realm of Balancer, Uniswap, Aave, a lot of names I think that we know quite well. And obviously there was a number of groups that were not as big of winners in retrospect, but those were some of the things that were interesting in our plate at the time.
Oh, well, it was probably the only use case back in the times,
Yeah.
it was not much of DAOs or like other companies. Like now we have like DeSci and SocialFi and everything. Like back then it was mostly DeFi. So I totally understand why you focus on that. So how you got from like DeFi, which is, very like financial specific, into like the idea of forming a DAO for buying a constitution?
Yeah. I read a bunch about kind of the early stages of DAOs and was, I think, conceptually fascinated with them. DAOs, I mean, they're still so early right now. And at the time in 2021, when I was really reading and learning about them in 2020, were, I mean, basically non-existent. There's the handful of groups that started really pioneering things. Compound, and we nowadays now know Compound Alpha, Compound Bravo, which are the kind of the big governor contracts that a lot of organizations ended up forking and using to control their organizations. I was conceptually fascinated with those things. Aaron Wright was one of the leaders over at Tribute Labs, Open Law, and they had one of the early DAOs called Shark DAO, and quite a few others that I also thought was very interesting. I was very curious at the kind of intersection between how do you marry an on-chain organization, programmatic behavior, programmatic governance, and something that is actually also kind of legally understandable and kind of consumable by kind of regulators and normal people. And Aaron was doing a lot of kind of interesting work there. Kind of in the months before Constitution DAO, I was just trying to understand how is it that people are forming these structures to pool and gather assets to, in their case, the only things people were really doing were buying NFTs and NFT collections and kind of managing kind of communal funds that way. And so I was doing a lot of research on that.
Yeah, nice. I actually remember, I think it was like similar year probably. I was part of Ernst& Young, and we organized a global blockchain summit. And
Okay.
Aaron was actually the keynote speaker there, and he was
Oh,
signing
nice.
his book there. So yeah, he was very early. Like he was, I would say, one of the first lawyers actually known to like explore blockchain. Actually, we just released podcast with Primavera, which was the co-author of the book, and they are still progressing on it. It's still not clear
Yeah.
till today.
Constant work in progress.
Exactly. Like the legal part, the regulatory part, it's still kind of we are trying things. We hope we won't go to jail for it. But I think it's getting better overall, especially with the new administration. Hopefully some new regulation will be coming up. That's an interesting topic, I would say, till now. Well, so you said like the intersection between the legal, the understandable, and then the on-chain. How constitution itself actually like play part in this? Like I get it, the constitution is the like one of the oldest type of law. Was that kind of the intention, like or was it just like a kind of a luck, like now they're actually selling constitution and you were like, well, that would be great use case?
Yeah, a lot of things kind of happen to intersect all at the same time. I had no idea until I saw this article that the Constitution was going to be for sale, but I happen to be a bit of a history buff, history geek. I like weird things related to the law and how law interacts with technology. I think about things related to governance a whole lot. And so when I saw this thing that an original copy of the Constitution was going up for sale, and I was seeing what was happening with DAOs and pulling together assets to buy NFTs, I was kind of like, this is like the most original thing out there. And you could definitely gather enough interest and support to launch a DAO to actually go buy this thing and interact with this thing. And holy hell, would it be cool to actually go interact with what I think of as being like the cornerstone of modern governance, modern democracy, and civilization in a lot of ways is the Constitution. And to be able to interact with this on this weird cutting edge of these new tools that we're just creating and just building and playing with. In some ways, it almost feels like performance art in a certain way. But I thought it'd be really cool to interact with it. But it was really just random circumstance that this auction happened to be coming up. One of my friends from college worked at an auction house in Ohio and follows news on these things. And she sent just innocuously a link to a group of friends saying, "Ha, who wants to buy me an early Christmas present?" And I was closing an article on Shark DAO and opening the article on this Constitution for sale, and I was, oh my god, we could definitely do this.
Wow. Yeah. Like sometimes like things happen just like out of the blue and they just like kind of star align. But like back then, well, so you raised, I think it was $48 million for it. Was that something you expect going that big and that wild, or were you thinking more like it will be nice stunt, we will probably raise like couple hundred thousands, maybe get one article, or you were like, I'm all in, we will buy it, this will happen?
All in.
All
All in.
in.
I mean, like when I do projects, I like doing really big things, and I think of it more as like the analogy of like being a slugger standing up at bat and taking a really hard swing. If we stood up there and we swung really hard, and like we either we didn't raise enough money, or if something didn't work out, or we couldn't find a legal structure, okay, so be it. Go find another big project. But like if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it really big.
Nice. Wow. That's cool. Like, I think if you won't go all in, you would never end up, in New York Times and other articles. And
Yeah,
I think you actually like the project was pretty like short lived in a sense. Like you
super short.
basically decided one day and it was like the auction was in like 10 days or something.
Yeah, so it was November 11th. Saw
Okay.
this article from my friend that night of November 11th. We hosted a kickoff call. Me and Austin co-hosted this with a couple other people, with a bunch of people we'd been DMing on Twitter and other friends that we'd been looping into it. 1 week later, on November 18th, was the actual auction. We were in New York City with the core team for the auction.
Wow. So how was the process? Like walk us through it, like first 3 days, like first 72 hours. Like you are now the core team, which is like 3-4 people on the call, probably don't have $14 million in your pocket. How it worked?
Yeah. But basically, so immediately after seeing this article, I sent a message to my friend Austin Kane, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, we could start a DAO to buy the Constitution." And we started putting together just this, 1 or 2 page outline in a Google Doc of like how we'd launch it, how it'd run, and started just messaging people who we thought could help us accomplish our goal. And the message was basically, we're launching a DAO to buy the Constitution. There's a kickoff call tonight at 8 p.m. Here's the doc and here's the plan. And it sounds crazy enough, and the plan was thoughtful enough that I think people were like, sure, count me in. Like this sounds interesting. The core team formed extremely rapidly, and there's a lot of folks that actually were secondary and tertiary connections of myself. I wasn't super well connected in the crypto industry at the time at all, and so it was a lot of people who were like friends of friends on that core team. A lot of people contributed an awful lot super early on, but basically immediately there is kind of two main tracks, which were, one, how do we figure out a legal structure that lets us gather tens of millions of dollars and actually be a credible counterparty to Sotheby's, right? So the counterparty here, they've got to allow us to be an entity who participates in this auction. They have to verify that we have these assets. This is a weird thing they've never really dealt with before. And so legal was kind of one big track. And the second one was then, how are we actually going about fundraising? How do we do this safely, securely, put the money in a good place? And we ended up ultimately going with the Juicebox protocol. But there was a lot of conversations and decisions that went on behind the scenes there.
Wow. Yeah, like Juicebox, it's a great product. So
It's
definitely
awesome.
shout out to Juicebox. They're doing amazing job,
Yeah.
especially for fundraising. Even
Yeah.
smaller projects than this can
Yeah.
actually fundraise through Juicebox. So if you haven't checked it yet, go to Juicebox, and I will put it in the show notes, the actual link as well.
Yeah. Actually, on a brief aside, and it's really worth talking about Juicebox for a second, because I don't think that people realize what a powerful product it is, and B, just how thoughtful their team is, and what they've been able to build. I know Django over there very well. He's the original kind of Juicebox kind of creator. He built the first version of their protocol. Their team is still operational today and building incredible things. They're doing some stuff on RevNets nowadays, and it's very, very powerful stuff. And so what we looked at when we were kind of assessing options at the time, people were raising money through NFTs, through some platforms. We were looking at using Syndicate DAO. Will Papper was one of the founders there. He ended up being a part of the core team, but helped us actually make the decision. Syndicate's not the right product for us. It's actually going to end up being something like Juicebox. But what really made the decision was they had a programmatic method built into the protocol to allow us to return capital to people. So if we were unsuccessful in the acquisition to buy the actual document, we could easily put money back into the contract, hit a button and say, hey, anyone can come claim the refund. You get 100% refund, take your money back. The only thing you have to do is pay gas fees. And that for us was really important, to be able to make people whole if it wasn't successful.
Yeah, this this is a great feature there. Like it's kind of like a safeguard, even though you don't know the team maybe that well, you still kind of comfortable put money in because you know that the tool will work. Also, if you have some experience with the DAO, the
Yeah.
original DAO,
Right.
you know, Juicebox is like well tested, and the smart contracts are there for a while. There is hardly likely that it will get hacked at this point. Yeah, again, need to second that, like the there is great. I was also working with them a little bit, and they're super helpful. If you're even new, they will help you set up everything. Yeah, so definitely Juicebox is great for the fundraising. So let's maybe continue with the fundraising part. So the core team for the fundraising. So now you have the tool, but you still don't have any money in the juice box. How you are thinking about fundraising? Are you thinking like individuals? Are you reaching out to VCs, or what was the strategy there? Even like before you actually start reaching out, like what was your strategy?
Yeah. The strategy was, I mean, in its nature, crowdfunded, meaning anyone could participate, that people across the whole world, people in the US, abroad, anywhere, can incrementally contribute small amounts of money. Awesome. We obviously had this kind of end goal of like, whatever has to happen for us to be able to hit the mark. The article that I'd read that I was referring to, it was this Reuters article, estimated that the purchase price of this document was going to be between 10 and $15 million. And so we kind of estimated, well, if we raise 15 to $20 million, we think we got a really good chance at buying this thing. And so that was actually our original target. So then obviously, we ended up raising well over $40 million and still losing, which is crazy. But so that was kind of how we set some of the kind of the goals. And, all said and done, there was well over 17,000 people who contributed. And part of the goal here was how to make this really easy for anybody, people to put money into this and help us achieve this kind of shared goal.
Nice. And was it like very much like people were putting like the similar amounts, or were there some like outliers, like really big chunk of money was like with one individual?
Yeah, there's definitely a handful of really big outliers for sure. Um, is that we're connected, and we either found out because people shared publicly, or you're able to do on-chain sleuthing analytics and to determine some of these things. Some of them to this day we still don't know necessarily who some of the whales were, but I mean a lot of really big names in the space ended up putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Ethereum, in some cases millions of dollars into this. Standard Crypto, CMS, a handful of others were some of the big ones that I remember. I mean, after we opened up the fundraising pool, that when people saw big jolt all of a sudden goes from 6 million to 7 million. I mean, it's a huge increase, and people are like just fired up and ready. And I mean, at the time there was just so much concentrated energy on Twitter, and it kind of sucked up all the oxygen out of the room. It was the only thing people were talking about. And so when there was like another big thing, all of a sudden people start going, well, I want to be in this. I want to join this thing too.
Yeah, like the FOMO kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
now I need to
Yeah.
be in. Like this is too big to kind of
Yeah.
miss out on.
Something that wasn't explicitly a part of our fundraising strategy, but was a necessary part of it was, like I said, we started this thing on November 11th. The auction was on the 18th. There was only one choice, which was raise the money and participate in the auction. And it either happens or it doesn't. And so it's kind of like it forces everyone extremely quickly to just say, do I want to participate in this thing that could be extremely historic, extremely cool, and really what was the main narrative at the time, or do I just choose to sit on the sidelines? And that timeline and that exigency, that wasn't by choice, right? We didn't choose the date of that auction. And so it was a very real constraint that we just said, look, like either put money in now or this thing doesn't happen. And I think that there was started to be this like snowball effect that people said, yeah, I want to be in. I maintain that in retrospect, if we'd had 1 month of lead time, I don't think that there would have been that same type of compression of excitement and conversation and interest. And I'm not sure it would have been able to be successful. So there was something that happened to be lucky that all of that happened in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and I fundraised unsuccessfully a year ago, and
Okay.
like the general advice I was getting from other investors or other founders was, you need to really put your fundraising in the like week or two, and like really like that there is a constraint kind of, and like you decide now if you want to get in or you out. It like works well better than if you like, yeah, invest whenever, we will be fundraising for next 4 months.
Sure.
Like it's
Yeah.
like there needs to be a little bit of like this like time constraints, and like you really miss if you don't hit the fund button right now. So
Right.
I feel like, you did it in like very different way, but it's also like the general fundraising advice. Like if you are
Yeah.
fundraising, just fundraising like a week or two and like get everyone on it. People will talk just about that and hopefully you will get it. So yeah, I kind of understand the vibe there as well. And generally like the span, like the attention span people, like it's super short.
So
So
sure.
like you really need to like just push it, and then, well, hopefully you will succeed. So like now you pushed, did you hit like the 40 millions like early on, or like it was like the last moment you were like increasing like exponentially? Like what was kind of the vibe there? Like was it like from the beginning like big numbers and then like it plateau, or like it was like exponential growth?
Yeah, I mean, so day one, we open the contract and start taking contributions, and immediately we start getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is really exciting. The question is, can we keep this up? Can we maintain it? And there is a lot of interesting game theory here, right? Because there's no added benefit of putting in money on hour one as opposed to T minus 1 hour before we close the portal. And so most people from a game theory standpoint probably go, I'll just wait to put money into this, right? Like I can just wait till later. Let me see if they're going to raise enough money. Let me see if this is exciting. And so we were taking incremental contribution, and it was a few million dollars into the second day of fundraising, but it still didn't look like we were really going to have the trajectory needed. I mean, the vast majority of money raised was truly within the last 24, 36 hours of having the fundraising portal open. And it really did feel like kind of that exponential curve of you hit another milestone, people get excited. And I still remember, I mean, we were on our Discord with a live stream talking with folks from our community, and we had a $5 million donation come in. And it was, oh my gosh, this is huge. Julian Weiser and I were up on the Discord. We're like, this is, I mean, massive. This just put us over like a major threshold. And then within 8 hours of that, it was like another 500K. There was another $1 million. And then, I mean, cumulatively through a few thousand other people, I mean, just hitting milestone after milestone. And so it really felt like there was like that felt like the big tipping point in my eyes. And so all of a sudden it went from being like 6, 7, 8 million to 12 million, 15 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. Wow, holy hell. That just happened super rapidly.
Nice. Like, well, it's amazing. And I understand, like, if you
Yeah.
will see it, everything, like, you probably wait, like, do I need to pay the gas fees now, or like,
Right, right. And gas at the time, right? So like L2s, I don't want to say we're non-existent, but people weren't using L2s, and we made a decision to just do it on Ethereum mainnet because bridging UI was also horrific at the time. And as it was, trying to explain to an average Joe, here's how you get money from Coinbase to Ethereum, from Ethereum to our smart contract, it's a hard process. And the user interfaces are awful, especially in 2021. Let alone if we were trying to explain, here's how you now bridge to an L2, so we got lower fees. So we said, let's just keep it easy. And there was also Juicebox wasn't even deployed on L2s. And so we kept it on L. So that means the gas fees at the time, people were paying somewhere between like 30 and like up to $80, $90 worth of Ethereum in gas fees just to put money into the smart contract. Crazy, insane fees. Absolutely bonkers.
it's good that like you don't really like think about it when you are actually like Ethereum, like maxi, no, not maxi, like if you are using Ethereum like on like say daily basis, like you're like gas fees are
Yeah.
just like part of the game. Like I don't even think how much it was. I'm just
Oh,
going for
man.
it.
It was really hard to explain this to crypto newcomers, and something I'm proud about this product is it brought a lot of newcomers into crypto, got them to use their wallets for the first time, to create Coinbase accounts for the first time, to interact with the smart contract for the first time. But for them, when they're sitting here looking at the numbers and seeing the little line item on their MetaMask, going, "Wait, this costs that's the cost just to put money into it. That's not the money that's going in the contract. That's the expense." I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, set the gas fee lower and wait for the lower expenses. There's nothing else I can tell you here. Uh, and it was just the nature of the time. The chain was extremely congested.
Yeah, like, and yeah, like, and it was like with every big project like yours, like back then, like the fees were just going through the roof. But like this is a really good point. You actually brought so many people into crypto basically, and like being on chain, which is great. And with how to DAO, the book we are just publishing, we are trying the same. Like it's beginner friendly. Let's try to explain why to go on chain. Like if you think about like the percentage or number, like how many people like within the fundraising were like actually new to, I want to say, on chain or crypto, like you can pick and choose, compared to like the
Yeah, there's a Dune dashboard that actually has really good analytic for it, and it was basically new wallets that had just either just been created that give us a pretty good proxy of how many of these people were first time users or new to crypto, and it was an astonishing percentage. And I mean definitely the numbers of thousands of people who were brand new to crypto.
that's amazing. And like I think also what helps with that was like some of the articles were published during
Yeah.
that week about AO. So which article you are the most proud of?
There's not one in particular that stands out in my mind. I will say that doing the interviews with, I think it was Ken Russo at the New York Times was really fun. It was a little bit, you know, you do an interview with them, you don't actually know if they're going to publish something. And we were also, admittedly, I want to say acting weird, where it was me and Austin who were talking with them, who were coordinated New York Times, Wall Street Journal, a bunch of these big publications. But in these kind of spirit and accordance of being in a DAO, we also said, well, we want to loop in other core team members. And so we told Ken, um, uh, Mike, I'm blanking on the journalist name right now, but we told him, we're gonna have a couple people here. So there was like 4 or 5 of us, and so he's like, I've never done like this type of like panel interview. And we're trying to like really operate kind of like the ethos of being a DAO, and some of them like Austin and I were stepping down, letting other people do them. We put some other folks up on CNBC. That was really cool to see. Alice and Packy up there, kind of wrapping us as well. But the fun part was, is this a fun and compelling narrative? And all of them kind of got this joy out of, this is weird. I don't know how to interact with this group, and there's not really a single leader here. And I'm interviewing this whole panel of people, and they seem to be having all of this money, but it was interesting enough that all of them still ended up saying, yeah, we want to publish this piece, we want to write about this, and this is cool.
Yeah, it's amazing that you basically went the way of like decentralization, even though it might have been like in disadvantage too, because the counterpart is not used to it. The
Right.
likelihood that they will publish it is lower, but you still
Yeah.
like kind of went with this like decentralized path. I read actually about you that you really big in kind of the autonomous decentralization part of a DAO, that like you are a big supporter of DAOs which actually decentralize properly, and you don't like when the DAOs are just by the name. Is that correct? I think I read it somewhere.
I've got a lot of complex views on DAOs. And I mean, my high level take here is DAOs are one type of on-chain organization. On-chain organization is a very broad category. If you're gonna try to be properly decentralized and properly autonomous, your actions and mechanisms, your structure all need to actually support that as well. And realistically, there's desires. People want to be decentralized, but the tools don't quite catch up with it. And I'll be the first to say, Constitution DAO is not fully decentralized. It was not fully autonomous. Our tools certainly didn't permit us to do these things. We had a core team who's making lots of decisions, performing actions on, in order to communicate with Sotheby's and whatnot. And so there's a difference between, I think, like reality and sometimes like what's even, in your desires, what's possible versus what do the tools permit. But my thought on this stuff going forward is, there's lots of structures that work well. Some of them are centralized, some are decentralized. Some of them are permission, some of them are permissionless. Some of them are regulated, some of them are unregulated. And there's lots and lots of design space for these things. And the important part for me is, can you put them on chain? Can you have programmatic governance? Can you have programmatic accountability? Can you start automating the types of shifts of power and control through things like smart contracts that I think are superior to social contracts, legal contracts that give you actually higher guarantees and higher certainties?
And I'm with you there. Like I think we are trying to box the DAOs into very small, narrow kind of path, but overall there is so much design space.
Yeah.
And I just like being on chain and have the programmatic governance and stuff like can be big advantage for any organization. And like if it's like a proper DAO, like who cares? Like it needs to work for you at the end of the
Yeah,
day. And
definitely.
you said like the you mentioned the legal part also for the DAO. So let's rewind a little bit for the again like the beginning of the week. Like
Sure.
how you got the legal team going? Was it actually lawyers like working with you, or were you like doing research? I don't think ChatGPT was back then, so
No.
you couldn't do that. So how you actually started this like legal stream?
Yeah. There were basically like three legal paths that we started exploring kind of all in parallel, knowing that we got 1 week to figure this out. We probably need to talk to a fair number of lawyers, get a fair bit of advice, and figure out what's going to be feasible. And from like a need standpoint, I mean, one of my first notes to Sotheby's was we're launching a DAO by the Constitution. We've got millions of dollars of soft commitments. We're about to start formally raising the money. What do you guys need as an organization in order for us to be a counterparty who's permissible to participate in this? And that's kind of where the conversation started. Well, I say, well, you need a legal entity. Okay, well, what kind of legal entity? And there was a set of options and whatnot. So the three things that we started exploring in parallel was standard LLC, something you just set up in Delaware. These things can get spun up very quickly. At the time, DAO LLCs getting set up in Wyoming, Colorado were just kind of at the beginning of being entities that you could use. So, and these are really just wrappers. So we started exploring, does this make sense? It was something that you hear about, but now we had to actually dig into the details of, does this make sense? And the third option was actually setting this up as a nonprofit. And there's pros and cons to all of these things. Now, ultimately, the legal structure we actually ended up using was a nonprofit, and we worked with Robbie Heeger and the folks over at Endowment. That's ENDAO Mint. I'm sure you know them and probably talk to them. They do a lot of great work for donations and donor advised funds, and basically helping you donate money with your on-chain assets, getting tax benefits, advantages, a lot of things like that. Really great organization. I think really highly of them. But they basically became our fiscal sponsor. So spinning up a new nonprofit overnight, very difficult. So Endowment basically becomes our fiscal sponsor. We create an entity, and after we are able to, if we bought the document and we start basically making it publicly accessible, we can spin out an entity, do our own thing. But basically they stepped in to help us be a legal entity. So it was actually a requirement then when we got down to the actual auction that Robbie, as a representative from Endowment being our fiscal sponsor, was actually on the phone in the room with the folks at Sotheby's. It's again just part of this kind of like legal structuring and layering of all the things that has to happen here.
Nice. And it's a cool thing that you basically found a partner rather than like building your own. And like, I don't know what's your general sentiment on that, but like I hope DAOs or like on-chain organizations can actually enable having more like a network of companies rather than just building one huge one, which will just conquer the whole market. Do you feel like the same way that like the partnerships might be more possible actually when you can program it on chain?
Yeah, definitely. Partnerships get easier when you can program them. You can program the relationship between how are these two entities supposed to interact and what are the kind of controls and governance of those things. I think we're still probably pretty far out. I mean, like multiple years of seeing very large scale programmatic agreements between large scale organizations being used much more frequently that aren't, a very specific one-off tailored custom agreement. But that's the direction things are headed for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that was just a side note. But yeah, so now basically you have the money. You have $48 million. You have the legal entity or the partner who is providing you as a fiscal partner. How is the auction going?
So there's actually a couple fun details that I think a lot of people don't know about. I've talked about them on a couple of podcasts before, but one of them was we actually did not have final thumbs up approval from Sotheby's to participate in the auction until like an hour before the deadline. And the reason was they changed up some stuff on us a little bit last minute. So we're raising money denominated in Ethereum. The auction is denominated in dollars. And so what they see, and from their risk team and their legal team is saying, well, they got this group who's got Ethereum, but it's a crypto asset. It can be a volatile asset. And unfortunately, from the day that we started raising money to the day of the auction, ETH declined about 17%. And so when we say these numbers about, oh, we raised, about $45 million, it really just depends what day you want to measure the money on. It's because it was at 10, well over 12,000 ETH, but ETH was really what it's denominated in. And so their team got nervous and they said, well, you need to have dollars before the actual auction itself. I don't know if you've ever sat on tens of millions of dollars worth of ETH and all of a sudden need to have this in dollars instantly for an auction happening a few hours later, but it's not an easy task. And there's also implications, right? What happens if I take all that ETH, convert it to dollars, and then lose the auction and then try to convert it back to ETH and refund people. Well, if ETH has declined in that period of time, I'm going to be giving people a refund that's only a fraction of what they gave us, what they donated. And that's not right. That's messed up. And so I need to have some type of guarantee that I'm refunding the right amount. And so luckily we had a partner step in. Ironically, it was FTX US, and they actually facilitated the swap for us. And actually, I think very highly of Brett Harrison. He's one of the great guys from one of their team, super ethical, really great guy. Was not involved in any of the FTX global stuff that happened. Runs a really tight ship. Ironically enough, actually, he used to be an ex-Citadel guy. Citadel being the company that Ken Griffin started and the guy who ended up beating us. But they helped facilitate the swap to allow us to be able to take dollars and during that period hold it risk-free and be able to swap it back at the end without any issue. So they were really helpful in allowing us to do that. So all this happens literally hours right before the auction itself. They finally give us the green light, thumbs up. You can participate in the auction. Now, we have a whole core team, and there was an auction person that we work with at Sotheby's, and they said, well, one or two guys can actually show up here. And originally we talked about, maybe it's just going to be, me and Robbie being the guy from the endowment goes to Sotheby's itself. And he said, no. This doesn't make sense. Our whole core team was talking about going to New York anyway and wanted to be at the auction for it. So we actually ended up renting out a space and having our whole core team there, and inviting in some third parties. There's, some people who are, filming as well. And we put it up on the big screen. So we're actually a couple blocks away from the auction, but in this area by ourselves on the phone with them. So when you see the live stream in the feed, it's, Brooks on the phone with what we eventually find out is Ken Griffin, and David Schrader's on the phone with us and Robbie, and this room in our kind of closed area. It's high stakes, it's high tension, it's high pressure, and we're sitting here going back and forth, and we knew that this was going to be high profile, and we knew that it was probably going to go above for that $10 to $15 million mark. I think all of us really thought we were going to be able to win this thing, and when it finally happened, we knew that David Schrader was the person who's representing us. Sotheby's had told us not to communicate to people publicly who was our representative, that it should be anonymous. That was part of the rules. And so, we're trying to be good actors. And as it is, they could arbitrarily just say, no, you don't get to participate in the auction for whatever reason. And we don't want that to be the case. And so we said, whatever, don't tell people who's our person. That's fine. The internet loved Brooke Lampley. And they were like, you know what? Brooke's funny. And she seems to be a person and a funny character. She's got to be the one representing the DAO. And so they latched onto this. So people are watching the live stream, and every time, she bids up, everyone goes, yeah, the DAO's in the lead. And so then when it finally comes, we've backed into what our maximum possible bid is. And our maximum bid is not the total amount of money that we have. Something else that people don't understand is that there's auction house fees that you have to pay. And we also wanted to set aside a small pool of money to actually be able to manage the transportation, the storage, and things of that document, knowing we could probably find other funds and raise other money for this later, but we need to have some money for that. So we backed into what our maximum bid would be. And so the auction happens, we finally get to that maximum bid. Now the question is, David Schrader says it's thumbs up. The question is this other person, Brooke Lampley, and whoever's on the other side of her, going to outbid us? I can't say anything other than my heart just dropped when, you see him beat you out, and how this ends is that the auctioneer is going to sit there and wait and say, anything else, closed, to Brooke Lampley and her agent. So we're crushed. We know we've lost. The internet thinks we've won, and it gets thrown in chaos. People who are unrelated to the core team start hosting things because they go, oh, we raised $48 million. Final auction price, I think it was 43.2 or something. I forget what it was with or without auction house fees, but they basically start saying, well, we must have won. And people start hosting all these Twitter spaces, and there's all this confusion. So now not only do we have to, people start saying, oh, people think we won. Now I need to go out and try to correct the record and explain, no, it wasn't us. We didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you will win as well, because it was like, so much money. Like it was like, it looked from the outside like, obviously, like you need to get it. But like, if you have $48 million and then someone on the other side has like unlimited resources, basically, but you still, well, the good thing, if I understand correctly, like all the money went to charities. So you basically like up the price by approximately $20 million, which went to charities. So overall, this project was super successful also because of this.
Yeah, the people who were auctioning it, it was owned by the Dorothy Tepper Goldman Foundation, and they were putting all the proceeds of this auction into democracy education, democracy awareness, which I think is awesome, fantastic. And if we played I think a pretty large part in pushing up that price and contributing more money to charity, I feel great about that.
Yeah, I think you accomplished great thing. Like, onboarded more people into crypto, gave more money to charity. So I think it's amazing. And well, lastly, like the Constitution DAO, then like people could claim the funds. But you said also the funny thing is like it kind of lives its own life now that some
Yeah,
tokens stay in the distribution and it just kind of become a meme. Is
yeah.
that correct?
So what happens at the end of this, and this is how the Juicebox contract works, is people put in money. For every ether you put in, you could put in a tiny fraction of one, but for every ether you put in, you got 1 million tokens. And those tokens were to represent your portional pro rata governance of the document, what we did with it, where we presented it, how we used funds and used it to kind of promote democracy, and that would be your governance. Now, if you're unsuccessful, all the money goes back in the smart contract, and you can take those tokens and you can use them to redeem your underlying assets, get back 100% refund at the exact same rate you put money into it. And so we put back up the interface and we said, all right, the redemptions, the refunds are available. You can take your money back whenever you would like. Something we did not expect to happen was, people started seeing the queries, the Dune dashboards of the total number of tokens, and people started publishing how many tokens exist. So what happened was we put the money back in the smart contract, said redemptions are available, and we rescinded ownership of the contract. So we couldn't possibly reallocate those funds. We couldn't steal them. We couldn't use them for something nefarious. We couldn't do anything else. We said, like, this was designed to be a community project. The only thing you can do is take your money back and go home. Some people start taking their money back, which means the token supply starts going down. And apparently, in the laws of physics in the crypto world, when token supply goes down, it means price must go up. So all of a sudden, within a very short period of time, as people are taking their refunds, getting their redemptions, getting back their underlying, exactly what they put into it, all of a sudden, the market price on secondary markets, someone had created a liquidity pool somewhere and started swapping and trading these tokens. The secondary market price for this token was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 times greater than the money they originally put into it. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And so still to this day, it trades at this massive multiple to the underlying asset. So right now, if you wanted to, you could go buy People token on the public market. You could take that People token and you could go redeem it for the underlying Ethereum that was originally put back into that contract back in 2021. Now, there's no game theoretic incentive for you to do that because you'd be losing money. And so that's why this continues to live on with this life of its own. And it truly is a token backed by real assets, as well as the broader meme of Constitution DAO.
Well, so now we know how the meme coin started, basically.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Constitution DAO was the first meme coin actually launched, and
I don't know if it's the first meme coin, but it might be the first backed meme coin. It's actually backed by underlying Ethereum, though.
Yeah, like no, it's funny like how you create something and now it evolves because it's out there and anyone can kind of interact with the
Yeah.
smart contract. Nobody controls it. There is nothing kind of stopping you from doing that, like trading, speculating on the meme value of it. Well, it's impressive what you achieve with Constitution DAO, and I would like to give you a little bit more space also like on the future, like that was like in 2021, and now I know you are still in the DAO space. You still bullish on chain organization and DAOs, and you are building some tools for them and like helping actually DAO succeed, which I believe the company is called Mezzanine.
Yeah, that's correct.
So what's that about, and how it's kind of what's the future of DAOs based on that?
Yeah. So mezzanine is application, a website for people to interact with their on-chain organizations. And again, I define an on-chain organization as being a group of people with shared assets, with shared objectives that need to do things. And our software lets them actually perform a lot of functions. Do I need to pay people? Do I need to transfer money? Do I need to request an invoice? Do I need to raise money? And it's a unified interface with a lot of these tools. It's based off of It's built on EVM contracts and it's based off of Gnosis Safe. So if you're an organization that uses Gnosis Safe, you can sign into our interface and you can start using it to manage your assets and to perform these functions. The way we've designed it is designed to be very modular, and the way we've designed is also actually designed for interacting with third-party contracts as well. But everything is in this kind of very like unified interface. And so you've got contacts, you've got notifications, you've got access control that you can add additional people to be able to see and interact with what you're doing. Then you have this library of applications you can use as well for invoicing, for compensation, paying contractors. And we're now going and partnering with third parties like Juicebox and saying, hey, we'd like to make Juicebox fundraising available through the mezzanine interface and create a very cohesive experience. So the same team that people have potentially elected or selected to run the multi-sig can open a contract and can open a fundraising round. Then they can also use those assets to compensate teammates. And if they have counterparties they need to request money from, they could issue an invoice. So it allows you to basically start doing all the types of behaviors and functions that a real operationally intensive organization needs to do.
That's super cool. It seems like very comprehensive, DAO tool. So just like give you a sense what we were using now during our first course. So we just ran like our first how to DAO course. I think tomorrow we have lesson 4. And as a part of the course, you as a cohort actually creates a DAO. So you actually knows what it is, and then we have different teams like a membership team, governance team, and they are trying to improve their own DAO, and we are guiding them, and we use DAO House for it, so the Moloch V3. How you would compare that to your tool? Like what's the differences there, so we can like visualize, like is it like the same but they have way more features, so it's more for like bigger organizations, or what are kind of like the differences there?
Yeah. So Moloch V3 and the way how it works is it's a Zodiac module on a safe is how they're structured, right? And it's based off of, it basically allows for people to rage quit, to exit whenever they want.
Yes.
That's the core structure for them. And so it actually is built with a safe at the core as well. And so our interface basically allows you to say you can still manage that core asset with a standard multisig. Multisig is just n of n approval. So you can set it of 3 of 5 or 5 of 7. It's just basic authorization. But that organization over time might need to grow, change, evolve. So the very basic organization for us is just that then approval. So just a threshold authorization. If you want to change it over time, you could, with our interface, use something like Moloch DAO. That's the exact same stuff behind the scenes, same contract, same type of governance, that might say, oh, I want to use this module in conjunction with it. And you're changing the governance of it. And that would be an option. For a different organization, they might want to say, oh, I want to use perhaps a Governor Bravo contract to ultimately control my organization. And you can upgrade in that direction. So the core of our product allows for an organization to choose multiple paths over time. Right now, what we support is basic multi-sig authorization, and we're rolling out some features that we're working with the folks at HAT, and we're building on the HAT's protocol to assign roles and to assign signers of the organization. So the stuff is designed to be quite flexible.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, now you basically have the basic multisig. You don't like launch a token through it. It's like really just like one wallet, one signer. Is that correct? As of now?
Yeah, so there's no token. It's
Okay.
human based, or however many keys that you decide to assign to your multisig is basically what's actually controlling that. Yep.
Yeah. So
right now there's no like token launch or anything like that on it.
Yeah, because like DAO House and Moloch V3 with the rage quit function and everything, you basically issue the token during that, and you have the 2 types of token. Just for others to understand, where you have like the governance token, which you issue when you create it, and you have also economic token, kind of, so you can put money into the treasury, so you can claim it back, but you have no voting rights. So they have this 2 types, which I think it's pretty clever. It's like it's little opinionated design of a DAO, but I think we need that. I think we need that because there's not one organization is the same, like it's just like there are so many different types of organizations. And like you said, you work with the HATS protocol. It's just also amazing kind of governance structure where you can basically give people different rights, different roles. So some people can maybe spend some of the budget from a DAO or access different resources. So it's very much I would say role based and access based type of tool. Very flexible, very good project in Web3. So definitely people should check out Heads protocol as
Absolutely.
well. So what's the future of DAOs in general as you see it? Let me put that as a kind of last question. So last question is like where you see DAOs being in 2025 and beyond, and how you are trying to help to achieve it.
I think the future of DAO is much more broad, and I actually run a group called the On-Chain Organization Alliance, and I think of this again as this big umbrella that includes things like DAOs. The future of DAOs is kind of bigger. That says some organizations might need hierarchy, they might need permissions, they might need controls, they might need access control, they might need to be regulated, and so it's I think taking a broader scope and actually broadening the umbrella of what could fit in to an organization that gets put on chain, what could actually derive the benefits of programmatic governance, programmatic assets, and shared on-chain controls. I think that DAOs in particular, so this subset of on-chain organizations, what we see with them is going to be a lot of interesting work, I think, related to governance and agents. There's a lot of very cool groups that are getting involved in governance. I kind of describe these as like professional governance providers or service providers, that they are receiving delegations. They're being paid to perform governance tasks and roles in very large DAOs like Arbitrum or Optimism or Uniswap. And they're very large individuals. And so I think we're going to see that kind of get more shaped and defined as well, with people saying, how do you play a role in these organizations? And what's that proper incentive look like? People are experimenting with AI agents to represent the votes and voices of people. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think it's going to be important as well. I think people are starting to say, how do we move beyond the standard framework of just doing standard delegation? Can you do something to make sure that your voice is heard without having to show up every single time? People have realized that one of the big issues in DAOs is that, I'm super excited, I want to participate, I vote once, and realistically I get busy, I'm involved in a lot of other organizations, or I hold these tokens, I forget. And you're having a lot of organizations that aren't reaching their quorum thresholds and being able to make votes. And so we're starting to see more innovation of how do you solve that underlying problem. I think we're going to see more and more experiments coming out. A lot of smart teams and smart people working on it.
Wow, that's a nice verse at the end. And like also the AI can help definitely with the voter apathy, because we can turn on the AI and they never sleep.
It's true.
So it's definitely cool. Well, what I understood is that the future of DAOs is bright. You should join us on this journey. It's the frontier, and you want to be here with us. So, Graham, thank you for this conversation. It was super nice to chat again, and I hope you enjoyed the new year in New York.
Absolutely. Happy New Year. Cheers, and to the future of DAOs and on-chain organizations.
Thanks for listening. We hope you are as excited about the DAO movement as we are. Don't forget to check out our courses, grab our book, and join our community on Discord. Until next time, let's build the future of DAOs together. You can find all the available resources at howtodao.xyz.